to another episode of Between You and Me. Today we are back with episode 5, I'm pretty sure. So we are halfway through the season. Next week will be our mid-season break, and I'm actually going to be on vacation. So I'm really excited. Getting out of the country. I'm going on vacation, actually. I'm going to be having so much fun in the sun, shining. I haven't been on vacation in a very long time. So yeah, I'm excited. That's all I'm going to say about that. As you guys can tell if you're watching me on YouTube, we have switched stuff around. We are back in my bedroom and it looks a little different. I have different bed sheets. My room is set up differently. That is a whole nother story. I think I mentioned this in a couple episodes back, but I changed the layout of my room again so that I could have natural lighting. Because I would just wanted to have natural lighting in the spot that I record my podcast, which is why I've been doing it here and in my car. So if you are watching me on YouTube, please excuse the bed sheets. I don't think I like this vibe. I think I liked my other vibe, but I stained my bed sheets with chlorophyll. No, not chlorophyll. Sorry, wait. Chlorophyll? Just gotta do a quick Google search. Chlorophyll. Yeah, chlorophyll. Okay, I thought chloroform for a second, and that is poison. That's not what I meant. Chlorophyll. I had that green chlorophyll that you add into water, that concentrate, spilt all over my bed sheets when I was actually moving my bedroom around, and I absolutely messed it up to the point where it's stained. Can't use those sheets anymore. So I put these ones on, and it's not a vibe, but regardless. We shall continue the episode as is. I'm not going to change my bed sheets for this. These are freshly washed. So I do have a little beverage. I know I like to share my beverages with you guys. And today I have a nice warm little matcha latte. It is 4 p.m. and I'm deciding to have a matcha right now only for flavor. I don't even need energy. I'm literally wired. I already had an espresso this morning. But it is what it is. I was craving a matcha, so we're having it. And this is my cute little mug that says cup half full of attitude. And my friend got it for me for my birthday. Thank you, Nilu. So we're going to be talking about something today that I'm actually really excited to talk about in a weird way, because it's such a fun subject for me, because I think it's something that a lot of people think about and worry about a lot and are always constantly asking themselves, like, is this my intuition? Is this my gut instinct? Like, or am I worrying too much about something? Am I self-sabotaging? Like, it's a question that comes up for so many of us, and I'm here to answer it. So I'm so excited, because I think about a year or two ago, I was questioning, like, was the thing that I was worrying about actually my intuition, or was it something that had more to do with my mental health and my mindset? And I listened to a bunch of different podcast episodes about this, and honestly, some of them made it worse. Some of them made my anxiety worse. So that's why I'm here to, like, set the record straight a little bit on the difference between anxiety and self-sabotage and your intuition and your gut instinct. I think if you're like me and you suffer from more anxiety than the average person, it can become something that you actually just get anxiety over. Is this actually my intuition trying to talk to me, or is it just my anxiety once again, you know? That's kind of sometimes even the source of anxiety for some people. And I know sometimes when I just have a general feeling of anxiety, I'll start to think to myself, like, oh, why do I feel like this? Like, is this my intuition trying to tell me something bad is about to happen? Or is it kind of, you know, just that level of anxiety that I regularly feel? We're going to talk about what self-sabotage is, and then get into what a feeling from your gut instinct is and the differences between them, so that you guys don't have to worry in the future about what is what, and then also be able to get a grasp on your anxiety and how it causes you to self-sabotage, and hopefully that'll help you in your future life, in your relationships, in your career, to not make decisions and actions based on these false ideas that you've created in your head rather than reality and a true gut instinct. So what self-sabotage is, and what I've learned it to be based on my own experiences, is when you're making decisions that are actually hindering your own success and also stopping you from achieving your goals or where you want to be in life. A lot of the times, these can be subconscious thoughts and actions and decisions, but they can become conscious at times, and then you will think to yourself, like, why am I doing this? Like, what's causing me to feel the need to act in this certain way that's clearly not making me happy? So they're kind of like destructive steps and harmful behavior that will negatively impact your life. And today I'm going to be talking about the way that self-sabotaging can affect your relationships and your career in these two specific categories, because I think us in our 20s, and I talk about things that happen in this time span of your life, those two aspects are somewhat, I'd say, at least for myself, some of the most important areas of your life at this point. So it's interesting to look back and figure out how your actions have altered those two areas of life. And that's why I'm going to be talking about those specifically. So the causes of self-sabotage come from many different areas of your life. These are also points that I have specifically talked about in other episodes, which I'll mention if you want to know more about those specific subjects. But briefly, where self-sabotage can come from are your childhood experiences, your past relationships, and your self-esteem. I just recently did an episode on self-perception where I talk about self-esteem. That's going to give you a big outlook into that. And if you go back to insecurities in relationships episode, I talk all about childhood relationships with your parents and attachment styles and things like that. That all affects the way that you might create actions and decisions in your life today that are actually sabotaging your current relationships and your current situations in your career or goals and things like that. So, for example, right? Your childhood issues could be creating this conflict inside of you. And depending on how you grew up when it comes to your relationship with your parents or your caretakers, this will affect your attachment style and how you show up in your relationships today. Okay, so for example, if your parents were never really there for you to rely on them in an emotional way, if they were a little bit more absent, if they were maybe up and down, like sometimes they were there for you and sometimes they were more preoccupied with other things in their lives, you might have become a person that doesn't feel safe to be open and vulnerable with other people now because you weren't able to do that as a child and to be fully supported in whatever emotional situation you were going through at that time. Even it could be something small, like, you know, you were hurt one day, you fell, scratched your knee up, and you go to your parents for that comfort and support and they weren't there for you. And when that happens multiple times, you start to build up this idea that nobody will truly be there for you in the way that you want them to. So you solely rely on yourself. Now, that can affect the way that you show up in your relationships today because you don't feel like you are able to open yourself up to other people because you just don't trust them, right? And you know, we're going to get into it afterwards, all these examples of how self-sabotaging affects you. But I think you can already get the gist right there of how that would harm you not being able to be completely open with a partner in a relationship, or even, mind you, your friends, your other family members, like close people in your life. It doesn't just have to be a romantic relationship. Obviously, your prior relationships also play a big part in how you move forward in current relationships, right? So I do actually want to make a specific episode only talking about this. So let me know in the comments if you guys want to hear about that, because I have a lot to say about that. But let's say you were in a relationship where someone was constantly putting you down, right? And you felt very vulnerable with any type of negative commentary. And currently you're in a relationship and your partner might come to you and say that they don't like so-and-so about what you're doing. You can see this with the lens of that negative commentary that you were always getting in your previous relationship. And regardless if it's constructive criticism or them sharing their feelings with you, like, hey, I didn't like this, for example, you're going to take it in a negative way and potentially shut down, which in turn is sabotaging your ability to communicate in that relationship and your ability to figure out what it is that you need to improve on in yourself to have a healthier relationship. So in that sense, I'd say that's a lot more subconscious than conscious versus your childhood issues where you're consciously kind of closing yourself off and not, actually that could be subconscious too, but I think for a lot of people, you're consciously like, no, I'm going to shut myself off. I'm not going to open myself up in relationships. I'm not going to even try and pursue a relationship because of blah, blah, blah. Maybe the because part of it is not conscious, but what you're doing is conscious, right? And lastly, your low self-esteem can also contribute to how you act now in your life because you've created this negative self-image and you kind of behave in ways that confirm that image of yourself and also confirm these negative thoughts that you've built up of yourself over the years. So for example, if you feel like you're not capable of excelling in your career, like I talked about in that self-perception episode, you won't go out of your way to even try to pursue something that might excel your career or something that feels a little bit difficult that you're going to have to put effort in. And that is a way of sabotaging your current situation. Anyways, so if you're listening to that and you're kind of like, that was a little confusing, like I don't really know if I self-sabotage necessarily, because the way I was describing it actually gave you guys a reason of why you were acting this way. And a lot of the times when you are acting in a way that's sabotaging your current situation, you're not exactly aware of why you do it. Sometimes you'll be aware of, the actions that you're doing in that moment, but you won't be aware of the deep-rooted source of it all. So I'm going to give you guys some examples that are clear ways that people self-sabotage. Procrastination is a very big element of self-sabotage. It can mean that you're afraid of the future. It can mean that you're afraid of whatever you have to do, the feelings that it gives you. So you procrastinate something, which is sabotaging your ability to get something done in the timeline that you aimed to get it done in. Fear of commitment is also a really big self-sabotaging tactic. When you stop yourself from committing to anything, really. It could be a relationship, it could be a new career, a new job, because you're just not sure about it. You're not 100% sure you will want it. It can come from being afraid of being hurt. It can come from being afraid of being disappointed. And it can come from being afraid of wasting your time, going into a career that you're not 100% sure about, or that you're not 100% sure you'll be capable of doing, can really stop you from even trying to commit to these things because you're like, oh my God, like I might get into this, industry, hate it, and then have wasted, 5 years of my life if I have to go to school for it or something like that. When in reality, it's like, what do we know? We don't know how our lives will pan out. And if you genuinely have interest and feel a passion towards something, you should try that without that subconscious thought process going on in the back of your mind telling you that you shouldn't do it, that it'll waste your time, that it'll hurt you or disappoint you. Holding grudges is also something that relates to self-sabotage. It proves to yourself that you are protecting yourself from the emotions that you might have experienced in the past with whoever has hurt you. And I think that holding grudges, although I'm guilty of it myself, tends to take a lot more effort than forgiving someone. So you're going through more emotional turmoil, which is obviously sabotaging yourself, rather than the freedom of letting go and forgiving someone. Substance abuse. This is something that is a little bit touchy, like a touchy subject for sure. But it can definitely be a form of self-sabotage. If anything, it might be the only reason that people abuse substances, obviously directly related to addiction, but getting started in that would definitely be a source of avoiding any kind of conflict in your life, any kind of emotional turmoil, any kind of emptiness that you might feel, and replacing it with something, any kind of substance that helps you to avoid that conflict. That could be anything from, weed, nicotine, to scarier and bigger drugs that will make a bigger impact on you. And it might not be as noticeable when it's something small like nicotine or marijuana, like things that we don't, a lot of people do, so we don't consider as big. But I've seen firsthand how weed can be used as a cope for people, and not for myself, by the way. I get major anxiety from smoking, but it can be used as a cope to like cover up the actual reality that you're living and make your day-to-day life a little bit easier, But in reality, you're just putting a band-aid over something that should be dealt with. And in turn, abusing that substance over and over again is just not going to get you anywhere, right? So you're sabotaging your current situation so that you don't have to deal with your past, present, or your future, right? Picking fights in a relationship is a really big sign of self-sabotage. You have to pay attention. I'm not saying that conflict itself is self-sabotage. I'm saying that if you are constantly picking the arguments and you recognize that you're getting into fights about random little things that later in a few days you realize are not that important, that's an element of self-sabotage right there. And this can come from you feeling used to a certain amount of chaos that you were experiencing in a previous relationship, or maybe even in your childhood. And you naturally bring that same energy back into your life because it's what you're used to. You're not used to something that might feel a little bit more calm and safe and maybe even quote unquote boring, right? And that's only because the emotions that you experienced during a more chaotic point of life didn't feel boring, because it was always a roller coaster. So something calm and safe and happy might feel a little bit unusual. So you throw in these arguments and these bickers in order to subconsciously feel comfortable again. This kind of goes hand in hand, but having super high expectations in relationships can also be a form of self-sabotage because you don't realize this. Okay, this one's actually really important for the girlies out there, but having such intense high expectations can come from so many places, right? But one of them might be sourced from seeing how other people are in their relationships. And then we start to look at our relationships and be like, oh, my boyfriend's not doing this, 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 this. So we start to create these really, really high expectations because we are almost expecting our partners to fail so that we can acknowledge that part in ourselves that's like, oh yeah, we knew that relationship was going to work out. We knew that person was going to hurt us anyway. We knew that person was going to disappoint us anyway, right? So that comes from a deeper place than just you thinking that you should be treated like a princess or like a queen. You should, right? Okay, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm saying sometimes they're unrealistically high expectations, and this can even be put onto yourself, the high expectations that you have for yourself that you're not able to live up to. And then when you don't live up to them, you're just like, oh, I knew I couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't capable of doing that. These are all sourced from things like your self-esteem. Lastly, if you give up before even trying something, this is definitely related to self-sabotage. I think you start to believe or overthink or ruminate on the fact that you might not be able to accomplish something because there's so much unknown in life, right? Like, we're not ever truly sure if we're going to be able to do something, if we're going to be able to accomplish all of our goals, or that our life is going to pan out the way that we imagined it. So these goals tend to feel really big and really scary. And if you don't have a strong belief in yourself that you're capable of trying at the very least, you tend to give up, and you're just like, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, it doesn't seem worth my time. Like, I might not even end up liking this or whatever I'm trying to pursue. And this is actually, I think, a really big one. And I think a lot of people might do this. So if you're in the same boat, because I definitely have self-sabotaged in that way in my life, stay with me, okay? We're going to figure out how to fix this type of shit. Okay, now, moving on to gut instinct. This is the other side of the book. This is the opposite. This is quoted from Psychology Today, a form of knowledge that appears in consciousness without obvious deliberation. Okay. It's kind of like a hunch or a feeling, something that you immediately know without really having to think about it for a long period of time. And it also feels like something that's like deep within us. When we say gut instinct, it's like when you feel an emotion in your body, a thought, whatever it is, it comes from your gut because that's something that you trust, right? It's something that comes without any type of doubt. Where does this come from? Where does the gut instinct come from? I looked it up, so don't worry. It comes from the mind's power of pattern matching. So this means that the mind quickly combs through long-term memory for similar situations and creates judgments based on that. So we call it a gut instinct because the process of us going through our mind and being able to reach through those long-term memories and how, a certain decision ended up in your past, and now you're able to make a decision on that very quickly, or you're able to feel something very quickly based on that thought. That's why we call it a gut instinct, right? It happens super quickly and effortlessly. And also because it's really aligned with our values as a person. No one's gut instinct is the same. And that's why it's special, is because it has to do with you more so than anything else or anyone else. It's tailored to how you see the world and how you see yourself. And a lot of the times your gut instinct is able to help you decipher things. It's able to tell you if a situation's good or bad, if you feel like a certain vibe from a person, if that person might have a good heart or a bad heart, or, whatever it is. Like, these are things that you just can't somewhat explain why you believe them, but you do. Now, it's hard to tell the difference between self-sabotage and your gut instinct, but it is possible. So the way that I look at it and how I've learned to differentiate the two is self-sabotage comes from self-doubt, fear, and anxiety. Okay? And the source of your gut instinct is your intuition. So now it comes down to anxiety versus your intuition and or fear. Okay? If you're a person who doesn't experience too much anxiety. But anxiety and fear shows up in your mind and in your life in a really emotional way. So you will have an overwhelming feeling that comes over you when you have a certain thought. You feel these bodily symptoms for the most part. Your heart will start racing. You'll start sweating. You might have like tension in your body. Your stomach starts to hurt. You have a lot of physical sensations when you experience anxiety versus an intuitive feeling. You also tend to fixate on the negative when it comes to anxiety. Whatever thought you're having will be, without a doubt, a negative one. You'd never have anxiety over positive things, do you? Right? So, also, when it comes to anxiety, your thoughts will be really chaotic. They'll be very messy. They'll be super repetitive. You'll be thinking about it over and over and over again during the day. It causes you to overthink, to doubt yourself. You'll ruminate a lot, and you'll generally just feel super unwell, like physically, emotionally, and mentally. Very nervous and uneasy. And the biggest tell to figure out if you're experiencing anxiety or an intuitive thought is that anxiety will cause you to constantly be thinking, what if? And your intuition won't be thinking that, okay? Your intuition is your subconscious giving you quick insight, giving you quick, clear, and confident answers to something. There's also no immediate reasoning when it comes to your intuition. You can't be like, oh, I shouldn't go there because blah, 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 blah. Your intuition is an overall state that you feel, and it is also a calm state. It also doesn't need to be a negative situation that you're feeling intuition for. It can be a more neutral situation, or it can even be a positive situation, and your intuition will still show up in those states, right? Everything is just clear and comfortable even if you might be feeling unsure or confused or uneasy about a certain situation, if you're looking for what your intuition is trying to tell you, that answer will feel a lot more calm and clearer versus your anxiety being super chaotic and being like, oh, well, I don't know. Like, what if this? What if that? Those two distinctions are going to be able to show you, what is my intuition and what is my anxiety speaking. And then by following, hopefully, only your intuition, guys, don't follow the anxious thoughts and worries, but by following this intuition, you can start to continue to trust in your gut instinct rather than falling into the trap of anxiety and then end up self-sabotaging whatever situation you're in. So I wrote down a little example for you guys to make it a little bit easier in terms of being able to tell the difference, like giving you a real life example. Okay. So let's say you're in a committed relationship with your boyfriend of 3 years and you begin to doubt your partner's loyalty. You're unsure if it's anxiety or if it's your intuition trying to tell you something is genuinely wrong. Now, if it is your anxiety, this is how you'll feel. You'll find yourself ruminating about his interactions, maybe with other people, with women, with men, whatever. Your anxious thoughts will start to create a really distinct mood. It will affect your sleep. It could affect your eating habits as well. And, big tell, it causes you to create a lot of arguments. Okay? Now, if this feeling is coming from your intuition, you will have occasional moments that raises this concern. You'll notice behavior like him not answering you for long periods of time, or him not telling you where he's going, or him hiding his phone, for example. And this creates a sense of unease, even though you don't have concrete evidence. So that could be your intuition telling you things, right? You don't feel unwell. You don't feel chaotic. You don't feel this sense of like, holy shit, what do I do? It's a clear like, okay, let's pay attention to this. Let's pay attention to this because it could mean something or it could mean something else. So regardless of whichever feeling you're playing into, whether it's anxiety or intuition, the solution is to communicate whatever you're feeling to your partner. But when it comes down to the anxious side of things, if you are in this scenario and you constantly find yourself ruminating over and over again about this, your partner not being loyal to you, you can end up creating a really negative headspace for yourself and for your partner because they aren't doing anything to give you a reason to feel that way, and that's coming from yourself. So that's when a lot of self-sabotage comes into play, when you start to change the dynamic of your relationship, and it ends up being an unintentional break of trust between the two of you, because although your partner's not doing anything, you're not trusting them. So like I said, communicate this with your partner without creating an accusation, and hopefully you will feel an ease in knowing which one's which, right? I think the biggest conflict that happens in these situations is thinking that your anxiety is your intuition. So as soon as you are able to make the distinction between the two, it should almost ease your anxiety. And we're going to get into how you can prevent yourself from acting on the anxiety and sabotaging your relationship or whatever situation it is. So when it comes to self-sabotage, it's a difficult one, but we have to look for the root cause of it. Now, self-sabotage, like I said, the root of it comes from anxiety, and I think that you tend to overlook where these feelings are coming from when it comes to a lot of people, right? Like, I feel like a lot of us just act without thinking about it or thinking about why we are acting in that way. So in order to figure out how to stop sabotaging your relationships, your career, or your personal life, it's important to take time to reflect about it. Like I mentioned at the beginning, it could come from your childhood issues, your previous relationship, or your perception on yourself, having low self-esteem. But you need to actually take a look at the decisions and actions and situations you've been in your past, how you've acted, and where that comes from. Okay. For example, if you tend to be really not trusting of people in relationships, you need to look back and be like, what caused me to break trust in people who are close to me to begin with? Did you have a relationship where someone broke your trust in the past? Did you have a situation with your parent where they broke your trust in the past? A lot of the times there's an answer, and it's up to you to kind of go back and reflect and think, oh, maybe this could be it. Let's say it was broken trust with your parent, and you're now in your 20s like me, and you haven't been able to repair that part of your relationship. Now's your chance, hopefully, if you still are, have a good relationship with this parent, to go and try and repair it. Go have a conversation about it. Go tell them how they made you feel. It might even heal a part of yourself to have a conversation with your parent and tell them, listen, you not being there for me in my childhood did this to me. I want our relationship to look like X, Y, and Z, so I can feel like I can rely on you. So I can feel like I can talk to you about things that are going on in my life. Like, yes, I'm an adult now, but that doesn't mean I don't want to be able to rely on you from time to time, because you are my mom, or you are my dad, or you are my aunt, uncle, whatever. Sometimes going back as an adult and repairing the relationship that you had with your parents can heal the child inside of you, and in turn allow you to kind of dissolve these anxious thought processes that you've had in your mind about trust, for example, and create a more positive relationship in the future with people that you're in relationships with. Reflecting on your patterns and ways that you've acted in the past are just going to allow you to get to the root cause of it. What you choose to do after you've figured out the root cause is up to you. Sometimes you need the help of a therapist, or maybe like a close person who has been through the same situations as you, or a relative of some sort that knows what you're going through, because we don't always see what other people see. I think you have to start to become very aware of how you act, and also be able to hold yourself accountable for the way that other people tell you act. If your partner, if your mom, if your cousin, if your sister is telling you like you have a very short temper, like you always get very angry very easily, take that into account. Understand that so many people are telling you, these close people that you love and you trust are telling you that you have a short fuse, you get angry very easily, you don't know how to control your anger in certain situations. Now, recognize that that's a pattern. Recognize that that's something that you should now try and fix so that you don't continue to sabotage certain situations in your life and certain relationships. Figure out where that anger is sourced from. Did you not have the ability to express yourself when you were younger? Were you constantly being picked on? You didn't have an outlet at the time? Like, gosh, there's so many, like me giving you examples are just to try and help you get a clear idea if that is you. But there's so much to unravel and discover about yourself in order to figure out what your fears are, and in turn, not to act in a way that are confirming those fears about yourself or about your relationship or about your career. I think another key part of figuring out how to not self-sabotage is to begin to accept yourself and the situation that you're in. If you've been hurt in your past, if you have areas of yourself that you feel like you need to heal, that doesn't mean you suck. That doesn't mean you're a shit person. That doesn't mean, you're a lost cause or anything like that. The only thing it means is that you've had this negative filter about yourself or about the world or about relationships for a while. And it's going to take some time for you to reverse that and for you to see the world, yourself, or life in a better way. So accepting the situation that you're currently in while trying to do better is the least that you can do for yourself. I also think when it comes to fear and self-sabotage, you need to stop only looking at the bigger picture. I was recently having a conversation with someone very close to me about this, and they were telling me like thinking about the world and all the negative parts of it and the fact that everything costs so much money and life is so expensive, and we're not going to be able to enjoy things in our future because we're constantly going to be working, blah, blah, blah. That is an element of self-sabotage right there, because in the same breath, they were saying that they don't want to pursue certain things in their life because they know it'll already end up a certain way. When you're looking only at the bigger picture, you're ignoring all the little details that are like the positive parts of life, like when it comes to this example. So when you're kind of hyper focused on the big, huge, overwhelming tasks, big goals, like the big scary stuff about life, you tend to look past all the little things that can make you happy or make you content with life, and you worry and fixate on these big negative things. Sometimes that stops you from even trying. Sometimes that makes you procrastinate trying. Sometimes it makes you just an angry person. It makes you not happy with your life or the world. There's so many things, right? There's so many ways only looking at the bigger picture negatively impacts you. So taking a step back and looking at your mindset also, not just the root cause of all the problems, but how you're looking at life now because of those problems, and trying to adjust those things too, takes so much effort, but is worth doing so that you don't continue to negatively impact your life now. Those are all my helping pieces for attempting to not self-sabotage. But I hope you guys did take something from this, and that being the difference between your intuition and anxiety, and how anxiety contributes to self-sabotage, and how your instinct and intuition are a lot more reliable when it comes to these things. Don't get me wrong, guys. I think that fact and rationale and logic is also extremely important, not just your gut instinct and intuition and things like that. But a lot of the times when it comes to the difference between these two, we can get mixed up with them and we can get very confused. So that was my point of clearing up the two, so that we don't feel super worried about what it is we're feeling and where it comes from. So now you know. Anxiety is chaotic, it's crazy, it's loud, it's telling you so many different things at once, and your intuition and your gut instinct are very clear, concise, quick, and calm. Okay? I hope you guys liked this episode. I hope it helped you out in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. I won't see you guys next week, but I will see you guys the week after. So don't forget to catch up on some of the previous couple episodes. And also, don't forget to just watch some episodes on YouTube if you haven't watched them yet. It's at Between You and Me Pod on YouTube. And please, guys, please go follow the Instagram. It's at Between You and Me Podcast. I need your guys' input, and that's the quickest and easiest way for me to get questions and comments and DMs from you guys is through Instagram. So please go and follow the Instagram. I don't know why I sounded like I was about to cry, but maybe I will if you guys don't freaking go follow me on there. Okay, that's it for this week. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you guys, and I will talk to you in 2 weeks. Bye.